Welcome to Y-Stick. You see a coiled shape in the grass before you even know you've seen it. Your foot stops mid-step. Your heart rate spikes. Your eyes lock onto the shape before your brain has said a single word about what it is. Then, half a second later, you realize it's just a garden hose. But for that half second, your entire body reacted as if your life depended on it. And here's the strange part. You didn't learn to do that. Nobody taught you. You were built this way, before you were born, by ancestors who never met you and never will. This is the story of why you are afraid of snakes, even if you've never touched one, never been bitten by one, and maybe never even seen one outside of a zoo enclosure with thick glass between you and it. Your fear arrived before your first memory did. Let's start with the babies. Psychologist Vanessa Lobu ran a series of experiments with children as young as 3 years old, some barely old enough to talk. She showed them a grid of photographs. Flowers, frogs, caterpillars, and snakes all mixed together. The task was simple: find the odd one out. Every single time, the children found the snake fastest. Faster than they found the flower. Faster than they found anything else in the grid. They hadn't been taught what a snake was dangerous. Many of them had never encountered a real one. Their brains just already knew where to look. Here's the part that should unsettle you a little. Lobu's team also tested how quickly children could spot other objects that were arguably more relevant to their daily lives, and snakes still won. Evolution, it seems, does not care what's on your calendar, because apparently millions of years of natural selection outrank your kindergarten curriculum. Now here's where the story gets much older. Primatologist Lynn Isbell has spent decades building what she calls the snake detection theory. Her argument is bold. She proposes that snakes were not just one predator among many for our early primate ancestors. She proposes that snakes were the reason primates developed such unusually sharp vision in the first place. Think about that for a moment. The very eyes you're using to read this sentence right now may exist, in part, because your ancestors spent millions of years trying not to get bitten. Isbell points out that primates have an unusually large visual cortex, packed with neurons dedicated to detecting shapes, colors, and sudden movement. Snakes, meanwhile, are among the only predators that have coexisted with primates across nearly every continent primates have ever lived on. Big cats came and went. But snakes were always there, quiet, coiled, and patient, so your ancestors' brains adapted. Not just to see snakes better, but to see them faster than almost anything else in the environment. Neuroscientist Arne Ehrman built on this idea in the lab. In a now famous set of studies, he flashed images in front of adult volunteers so quickly that most people couldn't consciously identify what they'd seen. A single frame, gone in a blink. But when that flash of an image was a snake, people's bodies reacted anyway. Skin conductance shifted. Stress signals fired. Their nervous system responded to a threat their conscious mind hadn't even registered yet. Your brain, in other words, sometimes decides you're in danger before you're technically aware you saw anything at all. It's less a decision and more a reflex with excellent timing. This is what researchers call a prepared fear. Not a fear you learn through experience, the way you might learn to be nervous around a specific dog that once growled at you. A prepared fear is preloaded. It's sitting quietly in your neural architecture, waiting for the right visual trigger, like a smoke detector installed at birth. Ehrman's experiments went further still. He tested how quickly people could unlearn a fear response once it had been triggered. Show someone a flower paired with a mild shock enough times, and the fear response fades quickly once the shock stops coming. Show someone a snake paired with that same mild shock, and the fear lingers far longer, even after the shock is completely removed. Your brain treats snake-related fear like a debt that's slow to forgive. Flowers get the benefit of the doubt. Snakes do not. This asymmetry has a name in the research literature: differential preparedness. It means your nervous system isn't a blank slate that learns every fear equally. Some fears are cheap and easy to build, and easy to erase. Others come pre-installed with reinforced walls, because getting it wrong even once, tens of thousands of years ago, meant you didn't get a second try. And this explains something that used to confuse psychologists for a long time. Car accidents kill far more people every year than snake bites ever have. Statistically, your toaster is more dangerous to you than most snakes you'll ever encounter. Yet almost nobody develops a specific, instinctive phobia of toasters. Nobody flinches at the sight of a car bumper the way they flinch at a coiled shape in tall grass. Why would that be? If fear were simply about what's statistically likely to hurt you, because your nervous system isn't calculating modern statistics. It's still running software written for a world that existed long before toasters, before roads, before shoes. Cars have only been a threat for about a century. Snakes have been a threat for tens of millions of years. Your amygdala has not gotten the memo about the update. This is the same reason you can look at a picture of a spider and feel a flicker of unease, but you can walk past an electrical outlet, statistically far more dangerous, without a second thought. Ancient threats get priority processing. Modern threats have to wait in line. Isbell's snake detection theory doesn't stop at eyesight either. She points to the anatomy of the primate brain itself, specifically a region called the pulvinar, tucked deep in the visual pathway. Studies on this region found neurons that fired faster and stronger in response to snake images than to images of other animals, faces, or objects. And they fired within a fraction of a second, well before the slower, more deliberate parts of the brain had even started analyzing the picture. Evolution appears to have built you a private, dedicated snake alarm, wired directly into the fastest lane of your visual system, bypassing the more thoughtful, more easily distracted parts of your mind entirely. That's a remarkable amount of biological real estate to dedicate to a single animal. Imagine your phone reserving an entire processor core, permanently, just in case a snake emoji ever appears on your screen. Here's where it gets a little uncomfortable. That same ancient alarm system that once helped a distant ancestor freeze at the sight of a shape in the grass is the same system that fires today when you see a red notification bubble on your phone, or an unexpected email from your boss, or a missed call from a number you don't recognize. Your body still reacts as though something in the grass might strike. It just doesn't have any grass left to look at, so it points that same jolt of alertness at your inbox instead. Isn't it a strange kind of inheritance to carry a warning system this old into a world this new? Let's go back to the babies for one more twist, because this is where the story gets its most surprising detail. Loebu's later research found that infants, when shown images of snakes alongside a scary human face, actually paid more visual attention to the snake. Not the angry stranger. The snake. Even though, statistically, other humans have posed a far greater threat to human survival across our history than any reptile has. Your ancestors, apparently, worried more about what was coiled in the grass than what was standing right next to them. There's something almost sweetly naive about the ancient part of your brain in that moment, still on the lookout for the one predator it's sure about, while entirely new categories of danger walk right past unnoticed. Consider how much has changed since that alarm system was built, and how little the alarm itself has changed to match it. Your ancestors worried about venom. You worry about a passive-aggressive email. Your ancestors froze at a rustle in the underbrush. You freeze when your phone buzzes during a meeting and you don't recognize the number. The stimulus has been swapped out for something entirely modern, but the underlying software, the freeze, the spike in attention, the flood of alertness, is running the exact same ancient code it always has. Nobody rewrote it. Nobody could have. Evolution doesn't patch quickly, and you are still walking around with a security system designed for a much older, much more dangerous kind of grass. It also explains why so many people report the same eerie feeling, the sense of being watched moments before they spot something moving nearby. Some researchers suspect this is simply your peripheral vision doing its ancient job, catching a shape before your conscious mind can name it, and sending a vague signal of unease up the chain before the picture is even finished loading. You feel the alarm before you understand the cause. That gap, however brief, is where a great deal of human superstition may have quietly been born. So the next time your pulse jumps at a curled-up rope, a shadow on the trail, or even a picture on a screen, understand what's actually happening. That is not irrational. That is not a personal weakness. That is tens of millions of years of primate evolution, refined generation after generation, all condensed into a reflex faster than conscious thought. Isbell's theory suggests this fear may be one of the oldest pieces of you. Older than language. Older than fire. Older than the idea of family, community, or civilization. Before your ancestors were human, before they were even close to human, they were already looking down at the ground, scanning for a particular shape, because the ones who didn't look carefully simply didn't get to have descendants. You are, in a very real sense, the end result of an unbroken chain of primates who were slightly better at spotting snakes than their neighbors were. That's not a metaphor. That's a functioning description of why your visual system works the way it does. So maybe it isn't strange that a coiled garden hose can still make your foot stop mid-step. Maybe it would be stranger if it didn't. Because long before you had a name, a language, or a single memory of your own, something in you was already watching the grass. And it never really stopped. If you want to keep understanding yourself, subscribe. And if you watched this far, what do you want to understand next?